something like 8 billion transactions per month. Now that's a humongous figure, and that requires a lot of technology at the back of how you want to make UPI run seamlessly. Because everybody with a QR code, I mean, right from a guy who wants to buy vegetables for 5 rupees, right to a mobile guy who wants to recharge, to every practically inconceivable thing that we had is now being run with QR codes and with UPI. 8 billion transactions, as I said, per month. That's something humongous. And Sathyan, how is the technology handling that kind of scale and fraud?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for that. So I think before starting off on the questions, I really want to say the key important thing about NPCI is it's one of the world's leading digital infrastructure, which is available in India and at a very high, and it compute at a very high scale. It's one of the most working infrastructure which operates at a scale. So that's the key thing, which excites everyone, including all the countries and stuff. So that's a key there. So when we talk about technology in the operational space, and that too in an Indian public sector space, I think there is one important question which need to be answered is how do you operate at a scale, right? And how do you actually take a lot of these innovations to operate at a scale? So I think that's kind of what we do. My team at NPCI as well as along with ThoughtWorks, we have been doing this at a scale, building the whole engineering infrastructure. So I would want to actually call off it as there is a very important element which is called as AI engineering, which is very much needed to actually bring all the innovations which we're talking about and everyone talked about to be in this space and to also operate at a scale. So just looking back the journey, how we actually went through, I think I can completely relate to a lot of the earlier talks and a lot of people, who actually talked about this. Just to give you the thing, I think very important aspect, I could completely relate to what Sudeep was saying. Fail fast, fail multiple times, and we actually did that. We had to actually go through that journey. We failed fast along, and the team at NPCI, ThoughtWorks, everyone. We had to actually go through. We had to convince our senior stakeholders to actually come back on that, and we talked about. The energy, Professor Junjunwala talked about the energy. The team who was there, they were really passionate about, hey, what we are building and what we are building for India. That includes everyone, from the developer to the leads who are actually leading.
Sathyan, I'd like to interject over here. Could you give us a couple of examples on the AI engineering part of it? What went into creating such a behemoth and ensuring these kind of seamless transactions?
Yeah, definitely. So getting into that, so I think the very important key challenges which we face is when it comes to the UPI ecosystem. The very important stuff is around the fraud detection. So it's basically one of the very key important points which important goals which we all want to achieve. And if you look at the news now, you can actually see that there are about 95,000 cases, fraud cases, which are still reported at UPI and stuff. But this is above and beyond, where we are processing around 8 billion transactions, per month and stuff. So it's a kind of a percentage, a small percentage, which we are still trying to address in this space. So what we followed a framework, and it's kind of an engineering framework. It's a combination of many things. So the first one, we wanted an ability to process data at a scale. So we wanted that ability. That's the first one. The second one, we wanted to process data real time. I want to say, gone are the days where we are doing a post-mortem, where something has happened and you're working on it for 10 days and you come back. We want to be real time. Third, we want to, I think, we talked about this, Viral Gandhi talked about this, bringing in the experimentation culture, the innovation culture within the team. And the fourth is about providing a continuous customer experience. Like if you look at it, I mean, all these POCs looks pretty cool, but when you actually put it in a production scale like an UPI, and if you have achieved something, you want to provide a continuous customer experience, which means the engineering which you have put through that needs to sustain, and that needs to sustain, the power. I mean, the 10x growth. Say, for example, after COVID, there was close to about a 10x or to 20x growth, and which UPI went through. And we had to actually support, those kind of cases. So it's basically these four elements, which, we work together as a team at NPCI and ThoughtWorks to actually bring in the whole thing. So just starting off on the scale, the main important thing,
and sort of design the system. The other piece is actually Sathyan's team had also worked on creating a workbench at UIDAI, and some of that learnings also came into play when you're doing an NPCI. All of these are billion-dollar transactions. I think that's the second. Third is all of this uses open source, and that's a key aspect that definitely the government puts a lot of focus on, and that's something that ThoughtWorks is also very passionate about. So all of these technologies uses open source, and the other part is while we have to scale, I think the team started with the smaller ones, right? I mean, UPI is the big one, but before UPI there is AEPS and there are other ones, right? So you test on all these things and then you start scaling to UPI. I think these are some of the aspects as well that the team sort of worked on and then got here.
Yeah, definitely.
Sathyan, I think now I'd like to shift gear a little, because in the interest of time, because
Definitely.
I know that we can speak about AI engineering till the cows come home. But when we talk about the broader digital public goods infrastructure, that entire space, I mean, you could restrict yourself to finance, and Vinod could have a broader perspective. So how is AI and generative AI being used in these spaces to leverage the kind of, achieve the scale, solve the problems of fraud, as you said, because I think 55% of the frauds in the digital payments space is taking place on the UPI. Those are the kind of reports that we have. So, but how is AI and generative AI, how are they being used to leverage this entire digital public goods space? Innovations.
So I think the generative AI space, and very specifically on the fraud management, this is a very strong case for us, and we are in an experimental phase to see how that can come in, because we currently, if you want to actually detect this fraud, what we do is we actually create a lot of machine learning models, deep learning models, which and an ensemble of models, which actually gets through. But I think now with generative AI coming in, the thought process is moving a little bit for, on a different note, saying, hey, given I give these criteria, saying here, a customer with these payment space, customer with this, transaction wallet, and there's just so much of signals, I mean, you can provide to the AI, and to see and then identify, whether it's a fraud. I mean, and I think, if you take an example of Bloomberg GPT and all those things, I mean, everyone is trying to actually build the context or domain context on top of, the generative AI space. And I think that we were seeing a very good interaction as well as, very good positive response in that space.
Vinod?
Yeah, sure. So I'll probably take a slightly larger view, and I think the India Commons has probably stolen a march over the India corporate in this case. Sathyan's team, for example, had worked on the Jugalbandi app as well, where Bhashni, along with GPT 3.5, has been integrated in WhatsApp and Telegram. And
Vinod, can you tell us a little more about the Jugalbandi app?
Okay. And I thought it's probably, it's
How many people in the audience know about the Jugalbandi app? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can see about less than 10 hands.
Okay, so it's a very simple app that, just search for Sathyan Adala. He keeps talking about this everywhere. But the app, basically what it does is, if you are someone in hinterland India and you want to know what government schemes are available for you given your state, you can go to WhatsApp. There's a certain number. You can ask the app, you can ask WhatsApp in your language, be it Hindi, Marathi, Punjabi, etc. And the app will go check on that mygov.scheme.in and then give it back to the user in the context of what he or she has asked. For example, if he says, I'm a 20-year-old graduate, unemployed, what schemes are available for me? He can ask that in Hindi or Tamil. He'll give an answer to him, to that person in Hindi or Tamil. So that's the Jugalbandi app. So that's the first production scenario of generative AI already in place that, the India Commons is using, in a sense, Bharat is using. The other, very interestingly, one of our product managers, not Sathyan's team, one of our product managers, he works with ONDC, and he basically used GPT to create a live dashboard that tracks the Yatri app's rides on an hourly basis. And he did that over a weekend. It would have taken maybe a couple of our engineers 2 weeks to do, but he just did that over a weekend. So that talks about productivity gains, or rather, what do we need data engineers for at one level? But it also talks about the fact that India Commons has started using some of Gen AI. So this is not just hype, it's in use. And we've got another 15 other conversations we're having with our clients in India, and globally within ThoughtWorks about 50 conversations at various stages right now. So it's all happening. We'll start seeing a lot of these things in production in the next few months.
And this question is posed to both of you. Innovation is good, technology, I think it's proven, but all these things come at a cost. So at this point in time, if I look at even NPCIs per se, or the UPI transactions, banks have sort of put a limit on them on a daily. And I think all of us know that it's not a constraint of technology per se. So could you just, shed some light on that?
Sure, I think there is a so I think Professor Junjunwala was also mentioning, it sort of is connected with, we could talk about energy, what it means to the climate, but it's also about the cost of transaction, right? When you have to UPI makes 4 hops to make a UPI transaction. I know it hits 2 banks at various points in time. I don't think banks were ready to take that kind of traffic in the first place. NPCI built a huge infrastructure, but the banks didn't know that it's going to come. So the entire ecosystem needs to build up, and if the entire ecosystem needs to build up, it has to be efficient for this ecosystem to be able to do this as well. So we believe some of the reasons why some of these limits are also being put is, what is the cost of transaction that all the ecosystem partners have to take, and it's a question out there. It's a software and a hardware problem to solve. There are various ways to address it.
And definitely, I think, to add on to that, there is also this whole ecosystem, because everything needs to be on-prem, open source, as Vinod was saying. And, if we are able to, the whole ecosystem, which is connected to the UPI or anything, we need to scale towards how UPI is scaling. Otherwise, it's not going to tie up. So I think that's where the major cost goes in. With respect to the banks or anything, there is not just the gateway cost. It's basically all the ecosystem who are connected to that needs to accommodate that change. That's a very important cost to be looked at.
I think it's a very important point that you made about open source, because people sometimes associate it with that open source won't be able to solve these kind of problems. Right. And I time and again reiterate that even Facebook's Llama is open source. So that's a classic example of generative AI.
I would really say that the way we need to actually look at the open source needs a change. We operate at this scale. It's like just to give you one example. UPI transactions, the machine learning model needs to do an inference in less than 20 to 30 milliseconds. You can imagine the compute and the algorithms which have gone into actually make this happen. So that's a scale, way we are operating.
And it's the same for UIDAI as well. When somebody is trying to do a KYC or a authentication or enrollment, right? So they have to do very quick dedupe to make sure that there's not a person who's already got an Aadhaar or something like that, and it also has to happen in milliseconds. So it's a lot of compute power.
And even to add upon just on the other, I think there's one more towards how do you even make the intelligence at the edge level, at the transaction centers level and stuff. So I think those are the challenges we're still going through. As everyone is saying, I think we were just on the journey, and there are challenges always being posed at X level, like we need to process at 20x, 30x. Can you actually move on?
So great, thank you Sathyan and Vinod for these insights.